The night in Manila was strangely still, almost too quiet for such a big city. Only a soft, distant hum could be heard, like the city was holding its breath. But this stillness was a trick. Reports had been flooding into the witching hour headquarters, coming in faster and faster each day. They were growing louder, like a warning. These reports were all about chilling Tiktik attacks. These scary creatures were showing up in different parts of the city, making people afraid. Tiktiks were like giant, creepy birds. They would swoop down quickly from the darkness, their movements too fast to see clearly. They especially targeted quiet neighborhoods where people felt safe. After an attack, the creatures would disappear, leaving only fear and confusion behind. The witching hour, the secret group of hunters, was very worried about these new threats. They knew something big was happening. What made it even more alarming was that more monsters were appearing in groups now. They weren't just showing up alone anymore. This meant that the enemy was getting smarter. They were working together, planning their attacks, which made them much more dangerous. Because of this growing danger, the witching hour decided to send out more hunter teams than they ever had before. They needed to fight back with everything they had. Even hunters who usually stayed at headquarters, doing office work or planning, were now being sent out into the field. This showed how serious the situation was. The leaders knew they needed every single available person to help protect the city. No one could stay behind. Among those sent out was Maya, a hunter with special skills. She was given a very important mission. Her task was to hunt the Tiktiks. She had to find them, stop them, and figure out why they were attacking. Maya wasn't usually in the front lines of a fight. She was more of a thinker and a planner. She was known for her tarot cards and for being able to see glimpses of the future. This skill helped the witching hour understand what was coming. But now her unique abilities were needed on the battlefield. She had to join the dangerous hunt, ready to fight. And to help her, Dean was assigned to the mission. He would be working alongside Maya. He would be her backup, there to protect her and fight with her. Dean was known for his incredible fighting skills. This was their first time working together as a team in a very long while, and it felt a little strange. Dean was still not fully recovered from his last big fight. His body felt heavy, and a dull ache spread through his muscles. He knew he wasn't at his best, not yet. He had faced a powerful Mangkukulam, a very bad magic user who had tricked him with nightmares. It had been a long and difficult battle. In that fight, Dean had managed to destroy her grimoire, a powerful magic book that held all her dark spells. Breaking it had taken almost all his strength. That fight had cost him a lot of energy, more than any other battle before. He felt empty, like a battery that had run out of power. Because of that huge energy drain, most of his special familiar tattoos were unusable now. They just wouldn't light up or move for him. These tattoos, which usually turned into magical creatures like wolves or fiery birds, were faded on his skin. They looked like old drawings, not living magic. Even his buntat pagi, a special whip-like weapon that came from a bracelet, also drained his limited magic. Each time he used it, he felt more tired. Using it too much would make him very tired, maybe even cause him to pass out. So he had to be careful with his power. So Dean had to rely on other skills for this hunt. He couldn't just use his usual magic tricks. He had to think differently. Luckily, he was very good at fighting with his hands. He knew how to punch, kick, and block, even without magic to help him. He also used special potions to help him in battle. These magic liquids could heal him or make him stronger for a short time. For this mission, he chose his silver brass knuckles. He pulled them out of his bag, feeling their solid weight in his hand. Silver was known to be very effective against Tiktiks. It would hurt them more than regular metal, making them weaker. He put the heavy knuckles on his hands, fitting them tightly. He was ready for anything these bird-like monsters could throw at him. Dean walked with a slight limp, a reminder of his past injuries. Each step was a small effort, but he kept moving forward. His face showed he was tired, with dark circles under his eyes, but his eyes themselves were sharp and focused, missing nothing in the darkness. Maya met Dean at a meeting point in an old, quiet part of the city. The buildings here were old and dark, fitting the secret nature of their meeting. She greeted him with a small, nervous smile, trying to act brave. Being on a hunt, especially with Dean, made her a little anxious. "Hey, Dean," she said, her voice a little shaky as she spoke. She hoped he didn't notice how nervous she felt. Dean didn't say much. He just moved his head up and down a little, a small nod. His face was very serious, showing no smiles or jokes, only grim determination. "Marquez?" Dean mumbled, saying Maya's last name. His voice was a bit rough, as if he hadn't used it much, or was still very tired from his last big fight. He didn't sound happy to be there. Dean really didn't want to work with anyone right now. He was used to being a rogue hunter, always working by himself. Plus, he still felt weak and drained, and he didn't like needing help from others. Maya had her own weapons ready. 2 shiny revolvers were strapped neatly to her hips, sitting there, waiting to be used. They looked heavy and important, but these weren't like the regular guns police officers carried. These were special, made for fighting things that weren't human, things that magic could only hurt. Instead of metal bullets, her gun shot special bullets that were made right from her own magic energy. She didn't need to load them with anything else. If she wanted a really strong bullet, one that could hit a monster harder, it would use up more of her magic. She had to be careful not to use too much power at once. Maya took a deep breath, filling her lungs with air. She slowly let it out, trying to calm the jumpy feeling in her stomach. This was going to be a tough night, and she needed to be ready. During the day, Maya lived a very different life. She was a content creator, making videos called vlogs for the internet, sharing stories with her followers. Her videos were actually part of her secret job for the witching hour. She would try to explain strange events, like monster attacks, as something normal to keep humans from finding out the truth. But tonight the cameras were off. Tonight she wasn't a vlogger trying to make people laugh. Tonight she was a hunter, ready to face real danger and protect the world. Maya pulled out her revolvers and checked them, one after another, making sure everything was working right. She was like a soldier checking their gear before heading into a big battle. "So, Tiktiks," Maya said, her voice a little firmer now. She tried hard to sound brave and confident, even though a small part of her was still scared of what they might find. Dean just made a low sound, a grunt, in response. "5 of them," he said, his voice still rough and tired. "That's what the information from the witching hour tells us." Either with their plans set, they moved. They began their hunt in a quiet, dark alley, where shadows danced and hid many secrets, perfect for creatures like Tiktiks to lurk. The air in the alley felt damp and heavy, making it hard to breathe. It smelled strongly of old, wet drains, a smell that often came with forgotten and hidden places. Dean moved very quietly, like a ghost, his footsteps barely making a sound on the wet ground. His heavy silver brass knuckles, worn on his hands, caught the dim light, showing a small glint of danger. His eyes darted around, looking into every dark corner and shadow. He was searching for any tiny sign of movement, any hint that a Tiktik was nearby, ready to spring out. Maya followed closely behind Dean, making sure to stay in his shadow. She held her 2 revolvers up, ready to fire at any moment, her fingers resting lightly on the triggers, prepared for anything. Maya focused, trying to hear everything around them. Her ears were very good, and she could pick up even the smallest or strangest sounds hiding in the night. She was looking for anything out of place. Just as Maya was listening closely, Dean suddenly stopped moving. He quickly lifted one hand, signaling her to be quiet and still. It was a clear sign that he had found something important. Dean's sharp ears had caught a sound that Maya hadn't noticed yet. It was a very soft, faint fluttering, like something with wings moving quickly in the air nearby. The sound was very specific. It wasn't a small bird, but something much bigger. It sounded like large, powerful wings beating the air, but Dean couldn't see what was making the noise yet. It was hidden in the shadows. Dean then whispered, "There." He pointed his finger quickly towards a dark rooftop high above them, where the fluttering sound seemed to be coming from. He had found their target. As Dean pointed, a dark shape slowly pulled itself away from the side of the building. It had been hiding perfectly, almost blending into the night itself. Now it moved out into the open. The shadow became clearer as it moved. It was a Tiktik, just like the report said. It was thin and looked like a big bird, but its claws were very long and sharp, ready to grab things or hurt them. As the Tiktik moved, its eyes, like 2 glowing red coals, shone brightly in the darkness. They were cold and evil, staring down at Dean and Maya below them, full of menace. Then the Tiktik opened its beak and let out a very loud, chilling scream. It was high-pitched, like a terrible screech, and it made the hairs on Dean and Maya's arms stand up. The first Tiktik scream was like a signal. Suddenly, from other dark spots on the rooftops and alleys, another Tiktik appeared. Then a third one showed up, joining the first, ready to attack. All 3 Tiktiks were incredibly fast. They zipped through the air above the alley, cutting through the darkness like sharp dark arrows shot from a bow, heading straight for Dean and Maya. Dean didn't wait for them to get closer. He let out a yell and charged forward, rushing towards the attacking Tiktiks. He was ready to meet them head-on, not run away from the danger. Dean threw himself at the very first Tiktik. He crashed into it, tackling it to the ground. As they fell, he swung his hand, connecting his silver brass knuckles with the monster's body. The Tiktik let out a loud, painful squawk. Dean's silver knuckles felt hot against its skin, burning it like fire. The creature twisted and struggled, trying to get away from the painful touch. Seeing Dean in action, Maya knew it was her turn to help. She quickly lifted both of her special revolvers, aiming them at the other Tiktik still flying in the air. Then she pulled the triggers and fired her magic bullets. From the barrels of her guns, glowing blue bullets shot out. They weren't made of metal, but of pure magic energy, shining brightly as they cut through the dark air towards the targets. One of Maya's blue magic bullets hit a Tiktik in the air. It struck the creature's wing, ripping right through the thin skin and bone. The Tiktik shrieked again, its flight now uneven. With its wing badly hurt, the Tiktik couldn't stay in the air anymore. It tumbled downwards, hitting the hard ground with a loud, sickening thud. It lay still, no longer a threat. While Dean was busy fighting the first Tiktik, another one saw its chance. It suddenly leaped at Dean from above, its long, sharp claws stretched out, ready to attack him. But Dean was quick. He ducked his head down just in time, letting the Tiktik's claws fly over him. Then, with a grunt, he brought his silver-knuckled hand up in a powerful punch, hitting the Tiktik right under its chin. The Tiktik, dazed from Dean's punch, spun wildly in the air, completely confused. It couldn't fly straight and seemed to lose its sense of direction. Dean didn't give it a chance to recover. He quickly followed up with another fast punch, a sharp jab. This hit sent the Tiktik flying backward, crashing hard against the cold, damp wall of the alley. But the fight was very intense, full of quick moves and dangerous attacks. Dean didn't have his usual magic, so he had to rely on his amazing strength and his fighting skills, which he had practiced for years. He moved very quickly, twisting and turning to get away from the Tiktik's sharp claws and snapping beaks. Each dodge was precise, just barely avoiding a nasty scratch. He felt the familiar strain on his body. Without his usual magic boosts, every movement felt heavier, and he could feel his muscles getting tired. He was using pure muscle power. Every single punch he threw was carefully planned. He didn't just swing wildly. He aimed for the weakest spots, making sure each hit would do the most damage to the creatures. While Dean fought up close, Maya continued firing her special guns. She was providing cover for Dean, making sure the Tiktiks couldn't focus all their attacks on him. She aimed carefully at the fast-moving creatures, taking her time. She wanted to make each magic bullet count, not wasting any of her precious energy. Her hands were steady, not shaking, even as small beads of sweat formed on her forehead. She was concentrating completely on her task, ignoring her own fear. She felt the drain on her own magic with every shot, a slight weakness spreading through her body. But she pushed through it, knowing how important her role was. But she kept going, pulling the trigger again and again. She knew Dean needed her help, and she wouldn't stop until every Tiktik was down, no matter how tired she got. One of the Tiktiks, badly hurt by Dean's punches and Maya's bullets, tried to escape. It spread its torn wings and attempted to fly away, hoping to get to safety. Dean saw it trying to flee. Without thinking, he quickly took off one of his silver brass knuckles. With a swift movement, he threw it like a small, heavy rock, aiming for the creature. The knuckle spun through the air, glinting in the dim light. It hit the Tiktik right on its leg, with a hard, sickening crack. The silver burned and hurt the creature. The creature cried out in pain, a high-pitched scream. Its flight completely failed, and it crashed hard into a large metal dumpster, crumpling against it. Slowly, one by one, Dean and Maya managed to defeat the Tiktiks. They worked together, their different fighting styles helping them take down the creatures. Just as they thought they were done, the last Tiktik, which had been hiding, tried a surprise attack. It darted out, trying to ambush Maya from behind, hoping to catch her off guard. But Dean, even though he was tired and had some painful injuries, was incredibly fast. He reacted in a flash, turning around even before Maya knew what was happening. He twisted his body and quickly grabbed the Tiktik right in midair. His hand closed around its body, stopping its attack just before it could reach Maya. With a brutal slam, Dean brought the Tiktik down. He threw it hard against the ground, and it hit with a loud thump. The creature lay still, unable to move anymore. Finally, the alley was quiet. The screeching and flapping of the Tiktiks had stopped. All that could be heard was the heavy breathing of Dean and Maya, tired from their fight. Around them, 5 Tiktiks lay still. They were defeated, no longer a threat. Their bodies were sprawled on the wet ground, looking like broken, dark birds. Dean wiped the sweat from his forehead with the back of his hand. His knuckles, still covered by the silver brass knuckles, ached from all the powerful punches he had thrown. "Good shot, Marquez," Dean grunted, his voice still rough. He looked at the fallen creatures, acknowledging Maya's help in taking them down. It was a rare compliment from him. Maya nodded in return, a small sign of thanks. She then put her revolvers back into their holsters, making sure they were safely tucked away. "You weren't so bad yourself, Dean?" Maya replied, a small, tired smile finally appearing on her face. Working with Dean hadn't been as bad as she expected. After a moment of rest, they began to inspect the Tiktiks more closely. They needed to understand why these creatures were here and how they had been so organized. These weren't just random monsters that had wandered in from the magical world. There was something more to them, something planned. There was something different about them, something that made Dean and Maya feel a new kind of worry. These Tiktiks felt like a puzzle piece to a much bigger problem. Dean noticed strange markings on their wings, symbols that seemed to be drawn right onto their skin. They looked almost like strange glowing letters. "Look at this," Dean said, his voice quiet with surprise. He pointed a finger at one of the strange symbols on a Tiktik's wing, making sure Maya saw it too. Maya knelt down quickly beside him, her eyes widening as she saw the strange symbols. She recognized them as something important, something not from nature. "These aren't natural," Maya murmured, her voice barely a whisper. She knew these symbols didn't belong on a creature. Someone had put them there on purpose. The symbols on the Tiktik's wings seemed to glow faintly in the dark, giving off a soft, unsettling light. It was clear magic had been used on them. The way they were drawn so carefully and exactly showed that they were too organized, too deliberate. They weren't random marks. They were a message or a spell. Someone is controlling them, Dean concluded, his voice grim. The symbols meant the Tiktiks weren't just hunting on their own. Someone was telling them what to do. Or making them more aggressive, Maya added, thinking aloud. The symbols could also be making the Tiktiks more violent and dangerous than usual. These Tiktiks had clearly been sent here to attack, not just wandered into the human world by accident. This was a planned invasion, a new kind of threat. The symbols on the Tiktiks were a very clear sign. They weren't just random marks, they showed that a much bigger plan was happening. Someone was behind these attacks, guiding them like a chess game. This meant that Tiktik attacks weren't just strange accidents. They weren't just monsters popping up here and there. This was something planned, something serious. The Tiktiks they had just fought were not acting alone. They were part of something much bigger, a larger group or a powerful force. These creatures were just small parts of a giant problem. These creatures were working together, following a clear set of steps. They were part of an organized agenda, a hidden plan set in motion by their unseen leaders. It felt like the enemy was sending these Tiktiks out on purpose, almost like pieces in a board game. The monsters were just tools, used by someone much more powerful to reach a hidden goal. "This changes things," Dean said, his voice deep and serious. The discovery of the symbols meant their fight was about to get much harder. This wasn't just a simple hunt anymore. Maya nodded her head slowly, agreeing with Dean. Her earlier nervousness about the hunt was gone. Now, her face showed a deep, serious focus. She knew the stakes were higher now. "We need to report this immediately," Maya replied. The witching hour needed to know about these strange symbols and the organized attacks right away. Every second counted. The people at the witching hour would want to know all about these strange markings on the Tiktiks. It was important information that could help them understand the enemy's bigger plan. This discovery was a big clue. It meant that traitors, those who had caused the terrible Great Cleansing event years ago, were now actively moving their forces. They were getting ready for something big. Not only were the traitors moving, but they were also getting smarter. Their attacks were more planned, more clever. They were using new ways to fight, showing they were very dangerous. Dean lifted his gaze, looking past the dark alley to the city lights twinkling in the distance. A new kind of worry filled his eyes. The lights seemed less comforting now, more like targets for a hidden enemy. The threat wasn't just random monsters anymore. The danger was growing stronger every day, and it was becoming more organized, like a secret army getting ready for war. Even though they had won this small battle and defeated the Tiktiks, their victory felt tiny. It was just one small win against a much bigger and scarier danger that was waiting, just out of sight. The hunting of the Tiktiks was finished for tonight. But even with the creatures gone, many questions were left unanswered. They still didn't know everything they needed to know. The biggest question was, who was pulling the strings? Who was powerful enough and smart enough to make these monsters work together like this? The person behind it was still a mystery. And what did they want to achieve? What was the final, big goal of these new organized attacks? Dean and Maya knew it had to be something very dangerous for both humans and hunters alike. The small, quiet warnings, like whispers carried on the wind, were now becoming clearer and stronger. The danger was no longer a secret. It was almost yelling at them. These growing whispers, these new signs, didn't promise peace. Instead, they carried a chilling promise. More trouble, more monsters, and bigger battles were coming very, very soon.
Shadows creep where the old truths sleep. City lights blur what secrets stir. From a lagging streets to the city's heart, a row hunter's feats playing a dangerous part. 15 years since the cleansing scar. Now the veil's thin, not far, not far. Monsters crawl beyond the wall. He's hunting them down, gonna make them fall.